Hello, today we're speaking with Jenny B. Jones. She just wrote and released There You'll Find Me. Jenny writes Christian fiction with equal parts of wit, sass, and untamed hilarity, and that is the truth. She also teaches at a large high school in Arkansas, and she has won several awards. And let me tell you that There You'll Find Me is a wonderful book. You've got to read it, and we're going to talk a little bit about that right now.
Right.
Oh, one other thing I wanted to mention is she used to assemble and test paintball guns
Yes.
as part of her background, which is, this is what prepped her up to be a drama teacher.
Pave the way.
Pave the way. There you go. Now, Jenny, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Absolutely. Well, I teach at, like you mentioned, a high school 9 through 12, creative writing and speech this year. And I live in the corner of Arkansas, and I love spending time with my family, and I'm an obsessive Facebooker, Twitterer. If it was a career, I think I would be in the running for president of that job. So I'm really great at wasting time is the theme of that. And I love to write, and I love to make people laugh through that fiction.
Now, you wrote There You'll Find Me, and you based it in Ireland. Have you been to Ireland?
I have. I went to Ireland a few years ago, and it was a dream vacation. And when I got there, I thought, I've got to use this for sure. I just think it's a romantic place, just automatically, and I've just always been in love with that culture, and after visiting, just completely in love with the people there.
When you wrote the book, you were writing about interesting, unusual spots.
Yes.
Do they really exist, or are they in your? Oh, they are.
Yeah, absolutely. They're real spots. The actual town that the book is set in is fictional, but it was based on a real town that would be within close proximity to all those places that really do exist.
I was wondering, now, is there any way to find those places?
Yeah, sure. Easy to Google them, get a travel agent and just go see them for sure. Yeah, but I would recommend Ireland to anybody.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things you bring up challenging issues in your books along with the hilarity, and your challenging issue in this particular book was anorexia. Can you tell us a little bit more about anorexia and why you chose that in your book?
Well, our character has suffered the loss of her brother that she was very close to, and so she just, there are the process of grief, and we think that there's a certain time that you need to be through with it, and she just kind of can't kick it, and she's not healing, she's not over it, and it just kind of spirals out of control and manifests into something else, and to kind of get a grip, her life feels out of control, and so to have some control in her life, she chooses to monitor her own eating and make some choices that makes her feel like she's in the driver's seat more. And everything else is just spiraling and spinning, so I'm going to control this part of my life, and it just becomes very dangerous. And anorexia is not just a kid needs to put on more weight. This girl's lost weight. It's a disease that attacks the heart and the mind, and so it's mental as well, and there's always something underneath that. Not always, but usually something underneath what's going on.
Now, what information did you use from your students to help form this story?
They always inspire me, but I chose anorexia because I think for girls especially, body image is it's just such an issue, and it just breaks my heart for them. What we as a society are doing to them with magazines, with what they see. They see a zillion images every day on TV and movies, and everything is telling them you have to be this size -000, and it's dangerous, and it's just giving them such a negative message that I just wanted to be a part of counteracting, and so students definitely encourage that. I didn't have any specific students in mind. I didn't get to research any of my specific students, but I do see kids struggling with that, and I definitely am struggling with anorexia, but overall I see my girls struggling with self-image just in general, for sure.
Now, how did you come up with the concept for There You'll Find Me?
Well, wanted to use Ireland, and I had a book called Save the Date that came out before that, and that was a women's romance. And my hero in there has a teenage sister, Finley, and I just wasn't ready to let her go. She has a small thread in Save the Date and kind of caused some trouble, and I thought it would be really fun to bring her into her own book and kind of explore that even more, of her grief and this family continuing to find their new normal after they've lost a family member. So Finley gets her own book, and we see her happily ever after.
How closely is There You'll Find Me based on your own life experiences?
There are some elements. I have not had an eating disorder, but I would say, just as someone who's been a teenager before and obviously a woman, we are all dealing with that body image and the messages. And so there's that, just that I do feel passionate about getting a more positive message out about, you don't have to suffer for skinny, and that your self-worth comes from God. It's hard, that sounds easy to say, and it's hard even as an adult woman to buy into that and to remind ourselves, but we need to be God confident and not necessarily body confident or be magazine ready. So, and then of course my travel worked into it, and I wanted to show the Irish people because if you go, you will just fall in love with them. Being from Arkansas, we think we're some of the nicest people with our southern hospitality, but they have even us beat. Just amazing kindness that we just don't see in America as often. So it's wonderful to see, and I wanted to show that to you.
What was the most interesting fact that you learned while you were writing There You'll Find Me?
That's a good question. I obviously researched anorexia and with books and talking to people who have experienced it in some sort of way, even if just secondhand, or being a family member that's been in touch with that. I think it surprised me that there's not always a mental issue. There's not always that child. If that child has anorexia, or that teenager, or that girl, or that boy, doesn't mean that there's something wrong at home. It doesn't mean that they're necessarily have some sort of underlying issue. Often it does, but it does not always. So you can't look at that teenager who has anorexia and think, oh, something's going on at home, or this is covering another issue, because not necessarily. And it's surprising that the gigantic fight it is to come out of that. Those girls who deal with eating disorders, anorexia or bulimia, they are so courageous, because it's not just, I'm going to start eating again. It is a full-on attack on them, and just an onslaught of so much for them to come back from that. And the numbers are not great. I mean, parents and teenagers should take heart, because there is hope, especially for those of us who have Christ. But, man, it's a battle. It's just such a battle.
What are some of the signs of anorexia?
There's quite a few, and I think every parent needs to be aware of those. But cutting your food up into little pieces, or hiding your food, shoving it under your piece of bread, having a child to quit eating meat. And kids have, it's nothing for a kid to suddenly be a vegetarian. As a teenager, they're all quirky and have, want to try things. But if you see that in conjunction with other things, a teenager not wanting to eat meat anymore, then it's a little bit of a red flag. Withdrawing from friends, withdrawing from social activities, sometimes withdrawing from family, but on the opposite end, also being clingy to family or to mom sometimes. So lots of symptoms. There's some great books out there and good information.
And what are some of the challenges that you face as an author?
Oh gosh, let me see. Challenges. This always sounds really silly, but it is really hard for me to just sit. Writing requires a whole lot of sitting, and that's exhausting. You would think that being up and around and moving would be exhausting, but sitting is so tiring. So that's very hard, and I'm not somebody who plans a lot. I don't have that gift or that ability to plan my whole book and plot that out. So it's challenging to sit down and not really know where I'm going with the book or the chapter that day. And that can be really stressful, but I find that mass consumption of M&Ms seems to help a lot and provide the antidote. So, and if it doesn't work, you just keep eating. So.
Now, what aspects of writing do you enjoy the most?
Gosh, I enjoy creating characters a lot. That's a lot of fun for me, and writing dialogue, and I love hearing from readers that a book touched them or made them laugh. I love to make people laugh, and so to hear that it made them laugh, or a favorite is when a reluctant reader emails me. As a teacher, that just warms my heart that a kid either emails me and says, I don't like to read, but I read your book, or a mom emails me and says, my teenager picked up your book and read it, and we just don't see this much. So that blesses me beyond anything. I love that.
Now, what are some of the new projects that you have on the horizon?
Well, I am actually taking a little writing break right now, so I'm working up here on the next thing, but I have rewritten my last 2 books, like thrown them away, kind of started over. So in a way, in the last year, I've put out 2 books, but yet I've kind of written 4, and some of those books ended up being like 8 drafts. So I think I've written, about 100 books last year, even though I only have 2 to show for them. So I just thought, I need a little break. I need a little mental vacation. So I'm just going to take a little break, and then I'm about ready to jump back in. And I probably will be doing a women's romance, I think. I'm ready to switch back to that for this book. I like the back and forth.
And what is your goal or mission as a writer?
It's very simple, maybe too simplistic, but I just want to entertain with humor, and I want the book to offer hope, and I want it to be a little respite for the reader, that when they close that book, that they can say that was a good time, and that was uplifting, and it just made them feel good.
What do you do to get away from it all?
Well, let me see. Like I mentioned, I'm a Twitter addict, so I do a whole lot of that, more than I should, as you can tell from the dust on all over my house and the dying houseplants. But I love to travel, and I went to Charleston, South Carolina recently, had not been there before, and worked that into a book also. In Savannah, went there recently. Love to travel and love to hang out with my family, and I'm a big food appreciator, so if I can get out where food is, that's a good time, and get to recharge with that. And a total movie buff, and love to read, obviously. All authors love to read.
Now, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Just that I'm so excited about this book. I think it's, it's got I'm excited for people to read about Ireland and about a character who we've seen before, but we didn't get to know as much. I'm glad she gets her own story, and I hope that it entertains and makes you laugh, but also makes you think, and that you'll just go on this journey with Finley. And she's also on this journey with a hot vampire actor, which helps a lot too. So we're really excited about the book.
Thank you so much for taking time from your hugely busy schedule here.
Thank you.
We want to thank you so much. You have been an inspiration to an awful lot of teenagers, and we thank you for that.
Well, thank you so much. Awesome to be here.